What if the real threat to a superpower isn't war, but silence? Not a bang, but a slow, suffocating debt, wrapped in denial, enforced by pride. The Soviet Union, a global titan armed with nuclear warheads and a sprawling empire, didn't fall because of an invasion. It collapsed under the weight of its own system. But what if that same blueprint, the same deadly cocktail of unchecked military spending, economic stagnation, and public disillusionment is quietly repeating itself? And what if that story isn't about Russia anymore, but America? Let's go back. Not to the moment the Berlin Wall fell, but before. Before glasnost and perestroika became buzzwords. Before Gorbachev was Time's Man of the Year. Back to the seeds of empire and the cracks that formed long before anyone noticed. After World War II, the Soviet Union emerged bloodied, but defiant. It had defeated the Nazis on the Eastern Front at unspeakable human cost. In the years that followed, the USSR transformed from a devastated wartime state into a Cold War superpower. With Joseph Stalin's iron grip and later leaders like Khrushchev and Brezhnev, the Soviet Union poured resources into military buildup, space exploration, and ideological expansion, but what looked like strength from the outside masked a festering rot inside. Much of the Soviet economy was built on central planning, where the state controlled every aspect of production. 5-year plans promised endless growth, and for a while, it seemed to work. The USSR industrialized rapidly, produced tanks and rockets at astonishing speed, and launched the first satellite, Sputnik, into space. But behind the milestones was a rigid, brittle system. Consumer goods were scarce, innovation was stifled, productivity slowed, and yet the military budget kept rising. By the 1970s, military spending consumed upwards of 15 to 17% of Soviet GDP, compared to around 5 to 6% in the U.S. Soviet leaders feared American advances in technology and defense. The arms race became an obsession. Billions were funneled into weapons, not into housing, food, or modern infrastructure. This wasn't just about defense, it was about pride, ideology, and keeping up appearances. They couldn't be seen to fall behind. The Brezhnev era is often described as a period of stagnation. From 1964 to 1982, the USSR maintained the illusion of strength. But beneath the surface, economic growth slowed to a crawl. The centrally planned economy couldn't adapt to modern challenges. Corruption was rampant. Factories met quotas but not quality. Shelves were empty, but official statistics claimed success. Then came the oil shock. In the 1970s, the USSR benefited from high oil prices. Its economy was heavily reliant on exporting oil and gas. But by the 1980s, global oil prices dropped. That revenue dried up. The empire's spending didn't. When Mikhail Gorbachev came to power in 1985, he inherited a system on the brink. He introduced reforms, glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring. The idea was to modernize the economy and give people a voice, but it was too little, too late. Reforms exposed the rot rather than fixing it. Glasnost revealed deep anger, suppressed nationalism, and widespread distrust in the elite. Perestroika triggered economic chaos. Prices rose, goods vanished, and black markets flourished. By 1991, the Soviet Union was gone. 15 republics declared independence. What had once been the other half of the bipolar world order simply vanished. But here's where things turn. Many Americans watched that collapse with smug relief. The Cold War was over. Capitalism had triumphed. The end of history, as some called it. But what if America missed the lesson? Consider this. In the 1980s, US national debt hovered around $900 billion. Today, it's over $34 trillion. Military spending in the US now exceeds $850 billion annually, more than the next 10 countries combined. America maintains hundreds of overseas bases, and yet, like the Soviet Union, its domestic infrastructure is aging. Trust in government is near historic lows. Polarization is growing. The middle class is shrinking. Productivity is slowing. And like the USSR in its later years, the illusion of strength masks growing internal fractures. The US has engaged in wars across the globe: Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, not unlike how the Soviet Union bled itself in Afghanistan in the 1980s. The parallels are uncomfortable. The Soviet war in Afghanistan lasted 9 years and drained billions. The US war in Afghanistan lasted 20 years. And what did either superpower gain? Let's look at debt. The USSR didn't technically default, but it owed billions to Western creditors and was unable to maintain economic stability. Its debt wasn't just financial, it was structural. It owed promises to its people it couldn't keep: housing, food, stability, jobs. When the economy broke, so did public trust. Today, the US government runs consistent budget deficits, financing spending with borrowed money. Entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare face insolvency within decades. Interest on the national debt is now one of the largest government expenditures, rivaling defense itself. This isn't abstract, it's real. Every dollar spent on interest is a dollar not spent on roads, education, or innovation. And what about elite distrust? In the USSR, the Communist Party elite lived in privilege while the average citizen struggled. That hypocrisy festered. People knew the system was broken, but couldn't say it. Until glasnost. And then they couldn't stop. In America today, there's growing perception that the wealthy and connected play by different rules. Wall Street bailouts, lobbying, tax loopholes, corporate influence, these all deepen public cynicism. Surveys show declining faith in democratic institutions, journalism, and even elections. Just as Soviet citizens tuned out Pravda, many Americans now tune out legacy media, believing they're being lied to. The mechanisms differ, but the outcome is the same: detachment. So where does that leave us? The collapse of the USSR wasn't a sudden event. It was a long, grinding erosion. A superpower, convinced of its own invincibility, unable or unwilling to adapt. Its leaders denied the severity of their problems, prioritized image over reform, and let ideology overrule economics. The final implosion only seemed sudden because the signs were ignored for so long. That's the lesson. It's not that America is the USSR. The systems are different. The freedoms are real. The dynamism is still present. But that doesn't make America immune to decline. In fact, arrogance might be the most dangerous similarity of all. 3 takeaways. First, unsustainable debt doesn't just mean economic pain. It means systemic risk. The USSR couldn't service its military, its subsidies, or its social obligations. America is heading in the same direction, only faster. Second, military overextension drains a nation. The Soviets bled in Afghanistan while ignoring domestic decay. The US continues to pour hundreds of billions into defense while bridges collapse, schools underperform, and healthcare costs spiral. Third, denial is fatal. The USSR denied its stagnation until it broke. America still celebrates growth without asking, growth for whom? At what cost? The warning is simple. Superpowers don't last because they're strong. They last because they're adaptable, self-critical, and willing to reform. The USSR failed because it couldn't tell itself the truth. Can America? If you found this breakdown helpful, share it. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And we're hearing the same notes again. Subscribe for more deep dives that connect past and present. And stay curious, because the truth is rarely comfortable, but always necessary.